October 4th, 2023, federal court bars nerve center of government censorship from influencing social media platforms. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit on Tuesday issued a preliminary injunction against the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency after finding it likely violated the First Amendment by influencing social media platforms' content moderation practices on topics such as COVID 19 and the 2020 U.S. elections. The New Orleans based U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit on Tuesday issued a preliminary injunction against the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, finding that it likely violated the First Amendment by influencing social media platform content moderation practices on topics such as COVID 19 and the 2020 U.S. elections. The injunction, part of an ongoing First Amendment lawsuit, Missouri et al. Versus Biden et al., bars CISA from interacting with social media platforms. It broadens an injunction issued last month by the Fifth Circuit against White House officials, the Surgeon General, the CDC, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and the FBI. The court found that these agencies and officials likely coerced or significantly encouraged social media platforms to moderate content, rendering those decisions state actions. The Washington Post described Tuesday's order as a significant reversal of last month's injunction, which excluded CISA, adding that it could have sweeping implications for government efforts to protect elections from disinformation campaigns. Kim Mack Rosenberg, acting general counsel for the Children's Health Defense, said CISA is a critical player in the administration's censorship activities, including CISA as an enjoined party, as it originally had been, further strengthens the impact of the injunction. CISA was part of the original injunction issued by a federal district court in July, but last month the Fifth Circuit removed the agency from the injunction. Journalist Paul T. Thacker, who has investigated CISA's suppression of online speech, told the Defender, finding that CISA violated the First Amendment really proves that many groups lied when they claimed Americans weren't censored. Attorney General Andrew Bailey. Breaking. We just obtained an injunction against CISA, an agency within the Department of Homeland Security that blocks them from violating the First Amendment rights of millions of Americans. The order also applies to the White House, Surgeon General, CDC, and FBI. Charlene Bollinger, co-founder of The Truth About Vaccines, who previously moved to intervene in the lawsuit on behalf of the public interest, welcomed the expanded injunction. It is past time we hold CISA and any other government organization responsible for colluding with social media platforms which have secretly censored our voices in the public discourse, thus breaking the law and our First Amendment rights. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals did the right thing, she says. Court, CISA pressured social media platforms into adopting censorship policies. The injunction is the latest development in Missouri et al. Versus Biden et al., filed May 2022 by the Attorney General of Missouri and Louisiana and several individual plaintiffs, including J. Bhattacharya, MD, PhD, Martin Kulderoff, PhD, and Aaron Cariati and Jill Hines. The suit alleges that the federal government, including CISA, violated First Amendment free speech clauses by suppressing speech on social media platforms. Michael Rechtenwald, PhD, author of Google Archipelago, The Digital Gulag, and the Simulation of Freedom, called CISA a federal government censorship and narrative maintenance organization designed to protect the state's propaganda from facts and opinions that the state deems to be harmful to its agenda. In its order, the three-judge panel of the Fifth Circuit adopted a similar view and found that CISA used its frequent interactions with social media platforms to push them to adopt more restrictive policies on election-related speech. The expanded injunction bars CISA, its director, Jen Esterly, and other key agency officials from any action that would coerce or significantly encourage social media platforms to remove posts or reduce their visibility. The court said CISA shall take no action, formal or informal, directly or indirectly, to coerce or significantly encourage social media companies to remove, delete, suppress, or reduce, including through altering their algorithms, posted social media content containing protected free speech. According to the Post, the Fifth Circuit expanded the injunction first issued in September after the Attorney Generals of Missouri and Louisiana requested a rehearing. They argued that the court failed to consider significant evidence demonstrating that CISA violated the First Amendment. The three-judge panel was swayed, writing in its order that CISA acted as the primary facilitator of the FBI's interactions with social media platforms, pushing them to change their moderation policies. According to the ruling, the platform's censorship decisions were made under policies that CISA had pressured them into adopting and based on CISA's determination of the veracity of the flagged information. Rosenberg told the defender, according to the opinion, CISA wrote social media platforms whether certain content was true or not, and this resulted in policy and content changes at the social media platforms. Further, as the court described in yesterday's opinion, CISA, working in close connection with the FBI, held regular industry meetings with the platforms concerning their moderation policies, which pushed them to adopt CISA's proposed practice for addressing mis, dis, and malinformation, Rosenberg said. CISA also engaged in switchboarding operations, meaning that, at least in theory, CISA officials acted as an intermediary for third parties by forwarding the flag content from them to the platforms. Breaking. Fifth Court today in Missouri versus Biden granted our request to expand the injunction to include CISA, a DHS agency I considered to be the central nervous system of the government censorship leviathan. An important victory. We anticipate the government will now appeal to the Supreme Court of the United States. The Post reported that the ruling clears the way for the Supreme Court to decide whether to take the case, a sentiment reflected in the tweets by key plaintiffs. Attorney General Bailey replying to Andrew Bailey, when it comes to defending the Constitution, Missouri doesn't back down. Joe Biden has promised to appeal to the United States Supreme Court. We look forward to defending your First Amendment rights at the nation's highest court. Jenin Young's litigation counsel for the New Civil Liberties Alliance, which represented several of the individual plaintiffs in the lawsuit, told the defender the expanded injunction is a welcome development in the case, as CISA's initial exclusion from the injunction was troubling. Describing CISA as one of the most culpable actors in government censorship regimes, Young said the NCLA looks forward to vindicating their clients' rights in the nation's highest court. We expect the government will again seek a stay of the injunction and petition for certiorari there in the immediate future. In a statement, the NCLA said it is pleased all these officials will be enjoined from infringing on the First Amendment rights of our clients. Dr. Janata Balakaraya, Martin Kuldorf, and Aaron Kirati, and Miss Jill Hines, and other brave Americans. The NCLA added the injunction vindicates Dr. Balakaraya, Kuldorf, and Kirati, and Miss Hines, who have all been blacklisted, shadow banned, deboosted, throttled, and censored on social media as part of the Biden administration's years-long censorship campaign. In a statement quoted by the Post, Brandon Wales, executive director of CISA, said, CISA does not and has never censored speech or facilitated censorship. Any such claims are patently false. Every day, the men and women of CISA execute the agency's mission of reducing risk to the U.S. critical infrastructure in a way that will protect America's freedom of speech, civil rights, civil liberties, and privacy, he added. CISA's nerve center of federal government censorship. CISA was established by Congress in 2018 with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to defend critical infrastructure such as election systems from foreign attacks. According to the Federalist, CISA acts as the nerve center of the federal government's censorship and is responsible for censoring the American public, facilitating collusion between the feds and social media companies, and interfering in our elections. CISA helped conceive and create the Election Integrity Partnership, a private anti-disinformation organization that lobbied tech companies to establish oppressive content moderation policies. The EIP also flagged offending content and flagged entire narratives for social media platforms to address, the Federalist wrote. CISA both directly and indirectly censored Americans, according to the Federalist. The agency directly forwarded social media posts to various platforms, seeking for them to be censored, and facilitated meetings between big tech companies and national security and law enforcement agencies to address mis, dis, and malinformation. The EIP, which later became known as the Stanford Internet Observatory and which operated the Virality Project, was the subject of previous Twitter files releases that revealed the network of high-level interactions with the federal government and social media platforms that began days after the Biden administration took office in 2021. In 2022, for instance, the Virality Project proposed a rumor control mechanism and a mis- and disinformation center of excellence be established at the federal level and housed within CISA. One day after the Virality Project published the proposal, DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas announced formation of the Disinformation Governance Board. Thacker told the Defender in June that the researchers from Stanford and the University of Washington worked with CISA to fill the gap of the things the government could not do themselves. Thacker said this is an admission that academics served as a cutout for federal censoring of Americans. And according to an investigation by Tablet magazine, CISA in 2021 transformed its Countering Foreign Influence Task Force to promote more flexibility to focus on general MDM, referring to misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. Together, they operated industrial-scale censorship machines in which the government and NGOs sent tickets to the tech companies that flagged objectionable content they wanted scrubbed. Tablet reported. This allowed the DHS to outsource its work to the EIP and later to the Stanford Internet Observatory. In June, the U.S. House of Representatives Judiciary Committee and the Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government released an interim staff report revealing collusion between CISA, big tech, and government-funded third parties to conduct censorship by proxy to censor Americans' speech on social media. And in April, an op-ed for The Hill, Senator Rand Paul described the collaboration of DHS with agencies such as CISA and their actions to police content on social media as an abuse of power that should terrify all of us. Paul added that CISA sought to use nonprofit, non-governmental organizations as a clearinghouse for information to avoid appearance of government propaganda. According to the Federalist, Easterly justified censoring the truth because she believes it's CISA's job to secure cognitive infrastructure, meaning our minds, and claims that Americans' cognitive infrastructure is the most critical infrastructure for CISA to protect. What she really means is that the public minds are critical to control, the Federalist wrote. Recktenwald told the Defender CISA was created to infringe First Amendment rights and to secure cognitive infrastructure, that is, the mind control of the public, adding that his view of that CISA should be abolished immediately. Thacker told the Defender key figures who collaborated with CISA, including Alex Stamos, director of the Stanford Internet Observatory, and a cybersecurity expert who once served as Facebook's chief security officer, and the EIP's research manager Renee DiResta, who previously worked for the CIA, should be investigated. It's time to take a harder look now at Stanford University researchers Alex Stamos and Ray DiResta. As I reported, Stamos and DiResta worked hand in glove with CISA throughout the EIP to undermine the Constitution. Stanford needs to explain why purported academics are doing this to Americans. Bollinger told the Defender that the censorship CISA helped facilitate was not victimless. I believe it's time to take down this organization and any other that works to keep our voices from public discourse. Millions of people may have lived who may have lived millions of people may have lived had our content not been banned from social media platforms by these people during the COVID years. It is a travesty of justice, she said. Notably, the Fifth Circuit, in its Tuesday order, did not grant the plaintiff's request to apply the injunction to the State Department and to bar government officials from collaborating with academic entities such as the Stanford Internet Observatory and the Virality Project. The Post reported. Missouri et al. Versus Biden et al. Has followed a circuitous path through federal courts. On July 4th, Terry Daugherty of the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Louisiana, Monroe Division, issued a 155-page ruling finding that there is substantial evidence that the government violated the First Amendment by engaging in censorship campaigns targeting content that questioned established narratives on COVID-19. The Biden administration appealed to the Fifth Circuit, which heard oral arguments in August. On September 8th, the Fifth Circuit partially upheld the July 4th ruling but removed CISA and some other federal agencies and officials from the injunction. On September 14th, U.S. Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito paused the injunction for 10 days, which was set to come into effect September 18th. The pause was subsequently extended by the Supreme Court on September 22nd until October 1st. CHD and its chairman on leave, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., filed an amicus brief with the Supreme Court September 20th opposing the pause. They previously filed a similar lawsuit against the Biden administration in March, Kennedy et al. Versus Biden, alleging systemic concerted campaign by the government to censor speech on social media. In July, the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Louisiana, Monroe Division, consolidated these two lawsuits. Rosenberg said, bringing CISA back under the injunctions umbrella is positive for all Americans, including the plaintiffs in Kennedy and CHD versus Biden, and we hope allowing more free expression and access to a wider variety of information and opinions, not just those that the Biden administration deems appropriate to share. According to the Post, cases like Missouri et al. Versus Biden et al. Are at the center of a growing conservative legal and political movement that has cast a pall over efforts to fight misinformation online. Amid the litigation, key universities are discussing how they can continue tracking election-related misinformation, and public health agencies have frozen programs intended to improve the quality of medical information online, the Post wrote. According to the Federalist, Missouri versus Biden has demonstrated that CISA does not respect First Amendment and is an immediate threat to freedom in America. The next step is for the agency to be dramatically defunded or yet dismantled. While the 109 House Republicans just voted tonight to fully fund CISA.gov to continue Team Biden's online censorship of their political enemies. With friends like these, who needs enemies? The recent amendment that would have stripped CISA of 25% of its ruling failed in the U.S. House of Representatives in a 320 to 108 vote on September 27th, with all House Democrats and 109 House Republicans voting against it.